Now, let's move on to the third part of theory of supply. The first part was with respect to what is supply, what are the determinants of supply, and the supply law. That is law of supply. When we have to write about law of supply, we will surely write about what exactly is the law, its explanation. After that, nature of curve, schedule, diagram, explanation of diagram, assumptions of law of supply, exceptions to the law of supply. Now, after completing that, we moved on to what exactly is the difference between extension, contraction of supply, increase or decrease in supply, which was variation in supply and changes in supply. Once we are done with that, now the last aspect of the chapter is elasticity of supply. What do you mean by the term elasticity? So this concept was already introduced to you while doing elasticity of demand. Now here, elasticity of supply will probably have more or less the same concept of understanding as what was done while doing elasticity of demand. Now, as we know that law of supply states, other things being equal, supply is directly proportional to price. What does that mean? What does that transpire? The answer is, if my price keeps on moving, then my supply will also move in the same direction. Remember, my dear friends, first price has to move, then supply will move. That means if price is the action, then supply is reaction. Now, when we talk about elasticity of supply, what exactly do we mean by elasticity of supply? It says law of supply only states the direction. That means it only says that in case if you increase the price, supply will rise. In case if you decrease the price, supply will fall. But in what proportion? By how much relatively the supply is going to rise or fall in proportion to the change in price will be answered by the concept of elasticity of supply. So in short, elasticity of supply is response of supply due to change in price. Of course, both are correlated. Supply and price, they are correlated. If I change price, of course, my supply is going to change. So they are saying that how supply will react, how supply will react due to change in price. That is answered by elasticity of supply. In short, in case you want to write a technical definition with good wordings, you can always go for it. The responsiveness of supply. Why? Due to change in price is called elasticity of supply. So elasticity of supply is defined as the responsiveness of the supply due to the given change in the price of the commodity. Technically speaking, you can write this as elasticity of supply is proportionate change in supply upon proportionate change in price. So, what do you mean by proportionate change in supply? So, the answer is proportionate change in supply means change in supply with respect to original supply. Oh, I got it. What about proportionate change in price? Following the same analogy, I can say that proportionate change in price would be change in price upon original price. In short, the notation that I use for change in supply would be delta S. Triangle means delta S. Upon original supply, change in price, I'm using the notation delta P, which means change in price, and original price is. So if you wish to write down, you can write down delta S means change in supply. What about S? S stands for original supply. What about delta P? So that means change in price. Very good. Upon original price. Sir, understood. I absolutely understood what exactly you are trying to explain to us. But sir, can you give us one simple example so that things becomes more clear? Okay, before we proceed, can I say this is nothing but elasticity of supply? Now, elasticity of supply is nothing but numerator upon denominator. So, if my elasticity of supply is nothing but numerator upon denominator, then how many possibilities can be made? In short, what I am going to ask you, what I am asking you is, what are the possible outcome? Possible outcome means elasticity of supply can have what possible values. So it all depends upon numerator and denominator. So it all depends upon how much is the change in price in contrast to the original price. So you don't know numerator and denominator, but having said that the elasticity of supply is nothing but a fraction of numerator and denominator, which is represented by proportionate change in supply upon proportionate change in price. So the value to this fraction could be first case, if numerator is greater than denominator, if numerator is less than denominator, if numerator is equal to denominator, if numerator is 0, if denominator is 0. I don't think so that there is any other farthest possibility other than this. These are the only possibilities. If I have to frame a fraction, hypothetically I can say it is 7 upon 9. So I can say over here numerator is small. Or it can be 9 upon 7. So you can check it out. Numerator is greater than denominator. Numerator is less than denominator. It could be 7 upon 7. Numerator is equal to denominator. Next is numerator is 0. So if numerator is 0, denominator is 7. Denominator is 0. So numerator remains 9. Denominator becomes 0. So these are the all possible values that we can assume. Having said that, these are the possible values, in the light of that, the value of elasticity of supply, in this case when numerator is greater than denominator, will be greater than 1. Elasticity of supply when numerator is less than denominator. Numerator is less than denominator. In this case, the value would be here. Elasticity of supply is numerator upon denominator, which will be greater than 1. Is numerator upon denominator, it will be less than 1. Hypothetically, you can assume 9 upon 7, 7 upon 9. What about this case, where numerator and denominator both are same? That means 7 upon 7, which equals to 1. What about numerator upon denominator? Having said that numerator is 0, so 0 upon anything is 0. What about the last one? Numerator upon denominator, where my denominator is 0, numerator is something. This is nothing but infinite, not possible, does not exist, or infinity. So we will say infinity. These are the possible values of elasticity of supply. So how can we do this? With the help of simple example and with the help of diagram. So my answer to that is, let us first arrange this in a proper order. Elasticity of supply is change in supply upon original supply, change in price upon original price. So elasticity of supply can be written as change in supply upon supply, multiplied by this P will go up upon changing price. So symbolically, elasticity of supply can be written as change in supply upon supply into price upon change in price. I am sure, my dear friends, until here this technical concept is understood. Let us do this with the help of a simple example. Now, the simple example that I will be quoting to you is, let us say price of pizza is 200 rupees. At that time, the total supply of pizza were 100. Now, if the price goes up from 200 to 300, producers will be very excited and they would wish to supply more and more number of pizzas because their margins will definitely go high. So I am assuming that earlier the price was 200, the new price, revised price is 250. Earlier I used to sell 100 pizzas. Because of the rise in the price, the producer will tend to supply revised supply. They will supply more. So 120 pizzas. So from this illustration, can anyone tell me what is the change in price? So change in price is 250 minus 200, that is 50. As price has gone up, supply will rise. It has risen. You can see so. So I understood change in price is 250. What about original price? That is 200. Change in supply. So earlier it was 100, now it is 120. So change in supply is 20. Original supply is 100. So can you substitute this value in this to find out the value of ES? Of course, yes sir. Change in supply 20. Original supply 100. Price, original price 200 upon change in price, which is 50. When you do so, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, you get 4 upon 5, which is 0.8. That means elasticity of supply is less than 1. I hope you remember. Elasticity of supply is less than 1. This is possible. When it is possible? So when the numerator is lesser than denominator. Numerator is lesser than denominator. So we got this. Later on we will interpret the value of each of them and what we should be calling them. Alright, so this was a simple numerical example. Now let us understand the same thing with the help of diagrams also. As far as elasticity of supply goes, it can be broadly divided into 5 aspects. Now, for example, when I use the word elastic, what does that mean? So, elastic means something which is flexible. Absolutely right. That means those commodities where a small change in price can bring a good change in supply. That means price will change marginally, but supply will change more than change in price. Really? Of course, yes. There are few commodities which are very, very price sensitive. Small rise in price, the producer would be ready to offload all the items, and then they feel very happy about it. They could realize everything from their stock, that too at a very healthy margin. I'm not telling you this about all the commodities, but small commodities. For example, a producer is working in a perishable product, like let's say for example a market, flower market. In flower market, you know the demand during any festivity or festival season is quite high. So the price of flowers like mogra, etc. has gone up from rupees 100 to 110. Now, seeing this as an opportunity and flowers being perishable in nature, the producer will instantly offload everything what they had due to the small rise in the price. And then they will offload. That means though the price change was just rupees 10, but the quantity change of supply would be several tons. So that means I can say that supply is very elastic, or you can say supply is highly elastic due to the change in price. In short, supply is very sensitive, very sensitive due to the change in the price. There are few products where supply is not that sensitive. Even if you change price by 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 30 rupees, 40 rupees or a great magnitude relative concept, yet supply changes. Supply will change. Supply will change with the rise in price. Supply will also rise. But the rise in price will be far more as compared to the rise in supply. So we say that it is inelastic. When is elastic? When supply is flexible. When it is this? When supply is rigid or less flexible. And the third is equally proportional. Change in price, that means proportionate change in price is just equal to proportionate change in supply. That means if the price will change by 10 rupees or price changes by 10%, supply will also change by 10%. Price changes by 20%, supply also changes by 20%. So both of them are equally balancing each other in the same proportion. As a result of which, we call it unitary elastic. What is unitary elastic? Sir, proportionate change in supply is equals to proportionate change in price. That means proportionate change in supply is equal to proportionate change in price. So, from the discussion that we have had so far, we can conclude that elasticity of supply is nothing but proportionate, or you can even say percentage change in supply upon proportionate or percentage change in price. I call this as a numerator and this as a denominator. The possible values of x, as what we have seen in case of elasticity of demand, the following are the possible values of elasticity of supply. What are they? My elasticity of supply could be equal to 1, greater than 1, less than 1, equal to 0, and could be equal to infinity. We are going to discuss each of them at length with the help of the diagram. Let us consider I want to move for elasticity of supply should be equal to 1. That means if elasticity of supply is equals to 1, so numerator upon denominator should be equal to 1. That means numerator and denominator would be equal. That means proportionate change in supply when equals to proportionate change in price, we say that E equals to 1, which means unitary elastic. That means if the price changes by 20%, my supply will also change by 20%. If price rises by 20%, supply will rise by 20%. If price falls by 25%, supply will also fall by 25%. What we need to do in this is a very simple thing. My supply curve will exactly have a 45 degree. 45 degree means it is equidistant from x-axis and y-axis. This is a unique curve where my supply curve will be equidistant from both x-axis and y-axis. The reason being, the amount of change or the proportionate change in supply is equal to the proportionate change in price. Now you can go ahead. O is the origin. This is quantity supplied. This is price. So now, assume I was in equilibrium at E, where the price is OP, quantity supplied is OQ. As you know, the change in supply should be equal to change in price. You can go ahead, change the price. Price goes up, OP1. What about supply? So supply also rises to Q1. Here, if you notice this distance, that means proportionate change in price and proportionate change in quantity demanded will always be same. So this is a 45-degree curve. That means exactly equidistant from both x-axis and y-axis. And this is called as E equals to 1. That means unitary elastic supply. I'm sure, my dear friends, this must have been understood. Make sure that when you are making this curve, you are exactly bisecting this angle. That means if this is a 90-degree angle, bisected, it has to be exactly a bisector. Then only you can get your E equals to what in a perfect sense. Alright, let's move on to the next one. That is the second one. Where my E, I am assuming it to be greater than 1. So, for making E to be greater than 1, as we know, elasticity of supply is nothing but again the numerator upon denominator. What is your numerator? So my numerator is change in supply. That means proportionate change in supply. And your denominator is a proportionate change in price. And I want this to be greater than 1. Focus on this. You want to be greater than 1. If you shift D that side, that is D will fly that side. So your numerator should be greater than your denominator. That means what you want is proportionate change in supply to be greater. The simple way of doing this is ensure that your supply curve is more or less, you can say, going upward with a very minute slope, small slope. It should not be steep. So this is the kind of slope. Another example would be you can make your supply curve like this. You can make your supply curve flat. Not exactly flat, but the slope should not be steep. It should be gradually sloping downward. So in this scenario, if this is same again on x-axis, we are taking quantity supply, whereas on y-axis we have price. Now I am in equilibrium at O point E, where OP is the price, OQ is the quantity supply. Now price changes by how much? So price changes by P1. So the change in price is only this much. See the impact. Change in supply is this big. Can I say proportionate change in supply is greater, that is numerator, proportionate change in price. Therefore, elasticity of supply is greater than 1. It means my supply is very sensitive to the price. Supply is very sensitive to price. So we call it relatively elastic supply. So the first case, what we discussed, 45-degree, E was equal to 1. Why, sir? So because the numerator and denominator both were equal. Proportionate change in supply was equal to proportionate change in price. Second one, sir, E was greater than 1. How to do? Gradual sloping. If you do so, this is your supply curve. Automatically you know that numerator is greater than denominator. So elasticity of supply is greater than 1. This is uniform elasticity, whereas this is relatively elastic supply. If you have understood this concept, I am sure that rest of the concepts are all self-explanatory and could be done by following the same analogy. Let's move on to the next one, where we will show that elasticity of supply is less than 1. We just did more than 1. I am shifting it to less than 1. If that is the case and I am shifting this d out there, what will be the result? So the result will be numerator would be lesser than denominator. That means proportionate change in price need to be more as compared to proportionate change in supply. So how it's going to happen? So have a look at it. If you look at this, make sure that your supply curve is having a steep curve, something like this. If not from here, you can make like this as well. This is my supply curve. Is it so? Yes, yes, yes. In case, if you wish, you can draw this as well. This is my supply curve. That's fine, fair enough. If I can extend this, automatically it's going to touch my x-axis. So this is supply, quantity supplied, whereas this is price. Equilibrium. So my equilibrium is E, where OP is the price, OQ is the quantity supplied. If I change my price from OP to OP1, oh my God, huge change. What happened to the supply? So supply has risen, but sir, disproportionately. The change in price is far more, or you can say the proportionate change in price is far more. This is reflected by nothing but denominator. This is reflected nothing but numerator. So my denominator is greater than my numerator. Denominator is greater than my numerator. In that case, value of elasticity of supply would be less than 1. That means this is a case of relatively, or you can say inelastic supply. Inelastic supply. I'll give you a simple example. For example, if the price of mangoes shoots up from 600 rupees a dozen to, let us say, 1200 rupees a dozen. That's a steep hike in the price. Can the supply of mango increase or rise by that manifold, double? No, because as we know that mango is an agricultural product. It is nothing that it can be produced in anticipation of demand. Mango requires a process that needs to undergo an agricultural process. So it's practically not possible for anyone to match up or catch up or speed up the production of mangoes in case if there is a temporary rise in the price of mangoes. So even if the price rise, I can change, I can increase, I can rise, my supply can rise, but only to some extent, not beyond that. And that's the reason why you can see there is a steep rise in the price, but there is a very insignificant rise in the supply. Same is with respect to many other products also, like milk. Same is with respect to salt. Same is with respect to other agricultural commodities or commodities where the supply practically is not possible to match because of various reasons. Few products are produced only during a particular season. After the season, those products may not be even available, but in case if there is a demand and there is a steep rise in the price, of course, yes, supply can rise by a bit, but then practically not possible to match up or catch up the supply with insane proportion as the rise in the price. So here, supply will be elastic supply, you can say, is inelastic supply. Let us move on to the next concept, that is perfectly elastic and perfectly inelastic. What exactly do you mean by that? First, we will do perfectly inelastic. Perfectly inelastic. Now, what do you mean by perfectly inelastic? So it means that my price will keep on rising, but my supply will not change. How it is possible? For example, you have this something which is antique painting. This antique painting is a master painting. You can say it's a masterpiece. I have one and only. Now, even if the price goes up, shoots up from rupees 10,000 to 20,000 to $30,000 or maybe $40,000 or $50,000 or whatever may be the price, can the supply of that masterpiece increase? It is commanding such high price only and only because it is a rare product. It is one and only. That's the reason why everyone wants to own that. Now, because I want that particular masterpiece, I don't mind paying any price for it because it is a matter of a status symbol. It is a matter of pride, matter of ego, and that's the reason why it commands such high price. If I can make a duplicate copy of the same painting, I don't think so it will ever command those prices. So even if the price rises, supply is practically not possible to rise. So my supply curve would be a straight line which will be parallel to my y-axis. No change in supply at all. That means supply of quantity before and after remains the same. Does not matter even if your price rises from OP to OP1 to OP2 or OP3 or to any level. My supply will remain same, adamant. That means no change in supply. No change in supply means my numerator is 0. My denominator could be anything. Take up any figure. Since the numerator is 0, therefore my total calculation of ES is going to be 0. That means it is a case of perfectly inelastic supply. Perfectly inelastic supply usually is led by an example of painting. You can take this or understand this with the help of the following schedule. Suppose when the price was $10,000, alright, supply was one single unit. Price went up to $60,000. Supply yet remains one only. What is the change in the price? The change in the price is $50,000. What is the change in the supply? That is 0. What about the original price? 10,000. What about the original supply? This is original. This is revised. And this is a change. So, sir, the original supply is 1. Change in supply is 0. Elasticity of supply is proportionate change in supply upon proportionate change in price. What is the change in supply? 0. Multiply by price, 10,000. Upon original supply, 1. Into change in supply, 50,000. 0 into any number, 0. 0 upon 50,000, that gives you 0. My dear friends, I told you. Amazing, beautiful. This at any point of time you can make the schedule and do it. The last one, the last but not the least, is perfectly elastic. Perfectly elastic supply. Sir, does this concept really exist? My answer is, practically speaking, perfectly elastic supply is a theoretical concept. Genuinely it does not exist unless and until there is a price restrictions or there is a monopoly. So those are the cases where there are chances that this concepts may exist, but those are not determined by the market forces. You are restricting it, you are manipulating it. That's the reason why it can exist. But otherwise, practically in the free fair economy, it is not possible to have this kind of concept. So the last concept, elasticity of supply, is infinity. Now how do we prove this as infinity? You know that elasticity of supply is numerator upon denominator, where numerator stands for proportionate change in supply and denominator stands for proportionate change in price. I can get infinity only when the denominator is 0. Denominator is 0, that means there is no change in the price. So have a look. A situation where price remains same, no change in the price. OP is only the price. Assume E to be an equilibrium. So my original supply was OP. So no change in the price, yet my supply rises, rises, rises. So how it is possible? Okay, there is no change in the price, yet supply is rising. There is no change in the price, yet supply is falling. That means price is not the important factor to decide supply. Price is not able to decide supply. That means my supply probably remains the same, or supply rises or supply falls, but price has got no role to play. So how it is possible? Can you give me one example, sir, where this model is possible? Of course possible. For example, let us say you buy a railway ticket from Churchgate to Borivali. What is the price? 30 rupees, return ticket. Alright, I want to buy 5 tickets. Price remains the same, 30, you get 5 tickets. I want to buy 500 tickets, you buy 500 tickets. I want to buy 5,000 tickets, you get 5,000 tickets. Imagine, price is the same, yet supply is rising. Price is the same, yet supply is rising. No change in imagine, there is no change in the price, yet supply is rising. But somewhere supply is falling. Not because of this coronavirus epidemic, people have decided to stay home. So initially, right now the lockdown is going on, but just couple of days before the lockdown, the frequency of the travelers have reduced manifold. So during that time, every day, as we know, that 70 to 80 lakh people travel by train. But that frequency, the number of passengers have come down to slowly and gradually 40 lakh. Then after that 10 lakh, then 5 lakh, then 2 lakh, then 1 lakh, 50,000, 10,000. Imagine, in spite of reducing the supply from 80 lakh to 8 lakh, supply has gone down, but there is no change in the price. That is one particular model where you can think, yes sir, price remained same, and my supply did change. Supply has risen also, and it fell down also. But price didn't play any role in it. Price remained the same. So basically, no change in price, but there is a change in supply. As a result of which, this is 0. So that is why this becomes infinite. And it is called as perfectly elastic supply. So my dear friends, with this, all the possible values of E has been covered, and I'll take you through all the possible values of E in a very rapid round. Have a look. 5 different diagrams. 3, 4 and 5. Place your values. E equals to 1. That is numerator equals to denominator. E more than 1. Numerator is more than denominator. E less than 1. Numerator less than denominator. E equals to 0. Numerator is 0. E equals to infinity. Numerator is not no role. Denominator equals to 0. When you know this for sure, life becomes very simple. E equals to 1. Unitary, elastic. How so? Take 45 degree, as I told you. This will be your supply. So, E is greater than 1. Okay, E is greater than 1, this is your supply. That means gradual sloping. Gradual. And what do you call it? Relatively elastic. Gradual sloping curve. E is less than 1. Steep slope. Steep. That means it could be this. Or in case if you wish, you can draw from here also. So, steep slope. And we call it inelastic supply. So, value of E is available. E is equal to 0. Adamant, rare commodity, masterpiece, painting. Unit price rises, no impact on my supply. Yes, that's how it goes. So we call it perfectly inelastic supply. And this is about the train ticket example which I gave you. Price will remain same, possibility of supply changing, rising or falling. So this will be perfectly elastic supply. With this, my dear friends, the entire concept of elasticity of supply comes to an halt. I am sure if you go through the diagram and try and understand the logic behind numerator and denominator, this technique will surely help you to understand and have an amazing clarity with respect to what exactly elastic means. My dear friends, you need to remember one thing very clearly. Elasticity is nothing, in short, it is the response of the supply due to change in price. Now, supply can change due to change in price, or supply can be restricted due to the change in price. It all depends upon the nature of commodity, time horizon, future expectations, and many more factors. We are going to discuss exactly what are the factors that are detrimental, instrumental, determinant, or important in order to have elasticity of supply. Stop. Now this is the last part of the entire chapter. Although the chapter was too long, but I am very sure that every aspect has been taken into consideration to make it more easy, more simple, and more interesting. Now the last part says that what are the factors which determines elasticity of supply. That means the response of my supply is going to happen due to the change in the price. Now besides price, there are other factors also which is sizzling up in the minds of the producer to change or resist to change due to the change in the price. Supply is a producer oriented concept. A producer cannot decide both price and supply. Price will be determined by the market factors. Producer can grab an opportunity to supply more whenever there is a rise in the price. If had it been a situation that I have to decide both, I will be the boss. Because I will definitely fix highest price. But just by fixing the price, can I invite a buyer? Absolutely no. So remember, my dear friends, price is always determined in the market by various factors and forces. So at that point of time, what will be my response to the price? That is what is called as elasticity of supply, or the price elasticity of supply. Now how it will be determined? They say that these are the following factors which can help you to understand how it's going to impact the price elasticity of supply, or what are the factors that can impact the price elasticity of supply. First is possibility of shift in the production. Suppose I have a capacity wherein I am into an alcohol business. So basically, if I am doing a business of alcohol, I have to produce beer and rum, vodka, whiskey, etc. etc. So what are the main ingredients for it? I need spirit. Now, I need spirit for the purpose of manufacturing all those wines that I make. But eventually, let us say if I get to know that government has banned the production of wines maybe for some time. Why? In order to encounter or to fight against a particular pandemic. So the production of wine or alcohol has been stopped. So what do? I have an option. I can shift my production from alcohol to manufacturing of sanitizers, because the main ingredient that is needed for the purpose of manufacturing of sanitizers is a spirit, which is alcohol. So if it is possible for me to shift the production from one thing to another with much of ease, then in that case supply will be relatively elastic. But if it is not possible to shift, that means if you ask me, there is a huge demand for mask Can alcohol companies start manufacturing the mask? The answer is no. So possibility is not there. Then in that case, the supply will definitely be inelastic. Take another example. I have a piece of land and I produce rice on that particular piece of land. Eventually, the price of other food grains are rising. My land is a very fertile land. My land can be used for multi-purpose also. My land can give me multiple cropping also. It's very easy and I'm very well trained and I have done some scientific research with respect to the possibility of growing other crops also on my land. Is it possible for me to shift from one food grain to another food grain? Yes. In case if the demand for another food grain rises and there is a good price bargain which I get for producing the another product, then in that case I can shift my production from rice to any other food grain which is a cash crop and which gives me a better prospects, better margin and higher price. So in case if the shifting of the production from one line to another line can be done seamlessly, without much of effort, without any resistance, without any hindrances, then of course the elasticity would be definitely relatively elastic supply. Second is time of process. As you know that once the raw material goes into the process of production, so there is a conversion of raw material into finished goods. But every conversion of raw material into finished goods needs some desired process time. In case if the process time is small, then there is a possibility for the producer to adjust and scale up the production to match with the rising price. That means in short, if the length of processing is small, then the supply will be relatively elastic. But if the processing time is huge, large, then it will not be convenient, it will not be easy to shift from one line to another, and there won't be any much of gain by the time I change my production, by the time I scale up my production. There is a possibility that the price which has shot up may not remain as high as what I was expecting. It may collapse. It was a quasi phenomena. It was a temporary phenomena. And by the time my production comes in the market, the price has collapsed by then. So it's very, very essential and important to know the time process that it takes to convert my raw material into finished goods, to adjust myself due to the change in the price. So elasticity will definitely fairly and squarely depend upon the time factor, the process in which I am engaged in. Cost of production for any producer is extremely important to decide whether to increase or decrease supply. Now in case if the cost is falling, I would grab an opportunity to produce more to match up with the rising prices in the market. Henceforth, in case if the cost is falling, supply would definitely be relatively elastic. And in case if the cost is rising, I really don't want to burn my hand in rising cost. As a producer, my margin is not going to be as healthy as it was before the rise in the cost of the price. As a result of which, if cost of production rises, supply tends to be relatively inelastic. Nature of product, as we have discussed earlier also, for all the durable products, there is a possibility of warehousing them, there is a possibility of storing them, so I don't mind taking in an opportunity and producing them in anticipation of demand, scaling the production too high and storing them, warehousing them, keeping them in a storehouse, etc. That is possible. So the demand for the durables are going to be relatively elastic. But when it comes to perishable product, agricultural product, so perishable product has got a very short longevity. That means they cannot be stored for a long period of time. I need to really complete my stock, finish my stock, offload my stock as early as possible. So in that case, supply is likely going to be relatively inelastic. Alright, and the last one, risk. This is solely an attribute of an entrepreneur, foresight of an entrepreneur, That means the producer. It is his call, his personal call. Depending upon his own experience, he will decide whether due to the rise in the price, he should take the risk and go for a massive scale of production, or he should not get carried away with the price factor. Because by the time if the market dynamics changes, then there is a possibility that he may have to burn his fingers, and that too bluntly. So I'll give you a simple example. Looking at the current scenario, I thought okay, it would be an opportunity where the government has come out with a notification that everyone has to have a mask. Yes, everyone has to have a mask. Even I do have. Alright. Everyone has to have a mask when you go out of your house. So because of this pandemic, this situation has arisen. I was merely a manufacturer of the textiles. I thought of an opportunity. My entire cloth material that I had, cotton, I asked all my workers to produce this mask. Now I manufacture 5 crore masks day and night shift. But within the next 15 days, this is just merely a thought. With God's grace, we have been able to control the growing numbers of this COVID-19 cases. And it dropped very sharply, not just in India but all over the world. I have manufactured 5 crore masks, out of which I could sell only 1 crore mask. The remaining 4 crore mask is lying with me only. Trust me, people are not going to buy those once we overcome this pandemic. And I am very sure I have made a huge amount of loss manufacturing those masks. So you can imagine, it is personally, solely a risk-taking activity which the entrepreneur, the producer has to take by himself, whether to go for it or not. There was also a possibility that this particular COVID-19 is uncontrollable for the next approximately 2 to 3 months or a couple of months. Then in that case, not only that 5 crore masks, but there will be more demand than what I have manufactured, and I would have made a killing amount of profit in that. So it is solely going with the risk, your intuition, your action, your desire, your greed, your appetite to take risk, whether you are risk averse or you would like to take a risk. It's your call. I hope we have done this chapter with great examples and illustrations, but in case if you still have any doubts or difficulty, you can surely approach me or Vishal sir. We will surely be there to serve you to your best. Thank you so much for watching the videos. Thank you.